You know what? As I was just talking to you, I realized something very funny. So I have probably thought of this idea for quite a long time now. I'd say probably like
2-3 months. I've thought, okay, get a name, good, nice. Get a concept, good, nice. Get branding, good, nice. Do you know what I haven't done? Is draft an intro. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go straight into it. So hi guys, this is the very first ever podcast that I've done for 12th Media. It's something, like I've said, I've been trying to do for ages, and I've put it on LinkedIn, I've put it on Twitter and a few other different places, including our website 12thmedia.com, which won't be the first time you hear me plug that, by the way. And I've tried to come up with a few different ideas, and basically I wanted to speak to people who are involved in football, involved in media, and to gain a bit of an insight for all of you guys who want to find out a bit more about the work that they do and whether you can do it themselves. So very first person that I've had on the podcast is my guest today. But to kick things off, I thought I'd ask something that typically in recruitment I like to ask. So I thought I'd just pose it to my first guest here and see what he or she can come up with. Don't know yet until they describe what they do. But to my guest today, how would you describe your job or what you do in your daily life without using a single word that you would use in your title?
Is in Talk Norwich City or my business, or both?
both.
Okay. I create social media content for people to enjoy, be entertained by, and value, and I save people time and money by doing so.
Oh, mate, smash that. Don't act like you didn't smash that. Absolutely brilliant. Well, yeah, today I'm joined by Chris Reeve. Chris, how are you, mate? You all right?
I'm really, really good, thank you. I'm delighted to be the first, but you didn't tell me that. I love that. I'm the first debut guest on this podcast. What an absolute honour. Happy to help, and hopefully your audience really value my ramblings.
No, I'm sure we will. But yeah, we've got quite a bit of time to ramble through some things. But I've looked at, like, we followed each other, I think, on LinkedIn for quite a while. And I've seen your stuff on, like you say, Talk Norwich City, and also on your website as well. So I'm really keen to have a chat with you about all things Norwich and all things media, to be fair. And one thing that I wanted to kind of start with is when I looked at your website, I remember you saying something like you're passionate about social media, you're addicted to social media in a way, and you've been doing it for a very long time. So I guess on that, where does that love of social media come from, and how has it spawned over the years from where it started to where you are now?
That is a brilliant first question on your first podcast.
Oh, stop it, Chris.
I think that my love for social media has grown over a number of years as I've learned more about the upside of it, and I think social media gets a bad rap, and deservedly so at times.
Okay.
But throughout my career, whether it's been in an internal or external facing role in any of the marketing positions that I've been in, or on Talk Norwich City, whenever I've posted a piece of social content that's been really valued by someone and they've said thank you, or when I've been struggling in my personal life and I've shown vulnerability and authenticity and I've just told my story, and then someone said, Chris, thank you so much for sharing that. You know, that's where I actually do get a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment in my life, by helping other people. And I think social gives you the ability to do that. Social media gives you the ability to obviously connect with anyone and everyone all over the world. And I would actually argue that the 6 degrees of separation actually don't exist anymore. I genuinely think that you can just connect with almost anyone so quickly because of social media. Like, we've grown and developed our podcast by just contacting people direct. Like, people in PR won't like this, people people in these big agency positions don't like this, but we can just go straight to the footballers now. We can just go straight to the guests, or I can just go straight to the business owner to ask them why their social media is so bad. And I think that's an insane power. So what am I trying to say? To summarize, social media, for me, I've just always had this knack of being able to squeeze it, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, Twitter. And I think if you're able to give people, no matter who you are, what you do, in any position, in any industry, if you're able to create content that that resonates and helps people, you will go very far.
Yeah, and one thing that you've mentioned in that is the word authenticity quite a lot. And the thing that I've sort of, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen quite a few different people now, whether it be a big social media account, let's say for a football club or for a big celebrity or someone who's just kind of up and coming and something that ends up going viral, is always that thing that makes it a bit more authentic. So if we take, I don't know, Twitter as a great example now with what's gone on recently, when they were posting before, this is just a personal thing for me, and feel free to let me know if I'm wrong or not, or if I'm in the mass, but I always tend to look at older posts and think it's just pure kind of PR commercial waffle. And now you get Elon probably typing it out himself, or probably telling someone to type it and saying what it is. So that authenticity angle, has that always been there, or in your experience, has there been a bit more of a concerted effort for brands and for people to be more authentic in order to take a bit of a better stance to where we are now and to be successful in modern day socials? Has that been a change that you think people are actively trying to make now?
I think people have learnt that the upside of being vulnerable, open, more authentic, themselves, personable, I would just say more engaging and not boring and corporate. The upside is so much. And I think there's always this scarcity and stigma around using social media and being yourself. I think, and actually, to be fair, that's because of the platforms, right? Because they create pockets of people and communities for their algorithms, which I won't geek you out on now, but that's the reason why it's so easy to just slip into, I'm going to post stuff that I know conforms. Actually, by opening up, being yourself, I think it's insanely powerful. So to answer your question, I do think it's taken a number of years for people to just learn how social media can be powerful for them, for themselves. And I spend a lot of time as the managing director of my business, Reeve Social Media, away from Talk Norwich City, doing one-to-one coaching with various different managing directors and non-execs, chairmen, and people at all level, and they always have this worry of their competition picking on them, and that sort of leads me on to the fact that there's obviously a problem with mental health on social media. And when I first started Talk Norwich City, the abuse, the online abuse, the online trolling was horrific. But now the upside is, I've got the most popular, myself and my brother Jack Reeve. We now have one of the most popular fan channels in the UK because we saw through that short-term pain of being picked on by being ourselves, for the fact that one day we'll be in this position doing what we love and luckily being able to commercialize it. So I think there's a problem with social media with I think it's a generational thing. I'm going to be brave. I think on the whole, people under 30 are okay with being themselves on social. But actually, I think sometimes when you go above 30 and there's almost more risk to it, it's like, oh, I don't want to annoy my boss, or I've always done it this way, or I've never posted on my LinkedIn account before. And I think it does just take that extra bit of learning and development time. And that's why organizations should get someone to train them on social media. 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so intrinsic in our everyday life. I mean, I was just saying to you earlier how my Wi-Fi is completely packed in, so it's weird to not be able to go on socials all the time to conserve data and all that kind of stuff. But if now, I feel like people actually want to take sometimes a social media detox and just not go on it, and it's almost a thing now to actively not go on social media rather than to just go through it. It's become that intrinsic now. And you mentioned wanting, definitely, I think companies should definitely have a bit of a training on it, not just for tone of voice and all those brand specific bits, but actually how you should be feeling, how to deal with things, because it is a massive part of our lives now. And I think we should go further and put it into schooling. I don't know how you'd feel about that, but I thought we all use it, we all have a view on it, and there are people who will come across your content and will just say something, and there's a whole thing we could probably talk forever about regulating it and about trying to get people to be nicer on socials, but it might never happen, and that's just a case of the world we sort of live in. And about that kind of short-term pain, I guess, that you mentioned about having to deal with the trolls and having to just in one ear, out the other. There must have come a time, obviously, when that got to you, because you can't just have someone coming at you all the time and you just naturally can fend it off. Some people can, but I'm not one of those people. I'm not sure if you are as well. But how do you then go from, I guess, the time in your life where you get those trolls and you're thinking, God, I'm just trying to do my best here, and then you go to what you do now with your personal brand in actually actively showing your vulnerable side. So that's quite a sizable development to do on your personal side for social media. So like, can you just talk us through what that was like? Let's say from posting that first ever vulnerable post, how do you feel sort of looking back at that? And if you can go into detail, what was that vulnerable post kind of about?
God blimey. Well, I do vulnerable social all the time, actually.
Yeah.
I couldn't cherry pick one, but I think it obviously all stuff. I mean, my journey to being truly authentic on social media came from Talk Norwich City, that purple fan channel, and just sharing my opinions as a normal, regular, bog standard supporter.
Yeah.
The trolling was horrific.
Mm.
Honestly, it was so bad, and 100%. I've had so many evenings of really dark mental health moments. Moments where I've half, not fully, but half considered packing it in, half considered stopping it. But ultimately, Dev, and this is the brutal truth, is that my story is my mum passed away in 2007 of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, right? So nothing will ever be as bad as that happening. So when I was abused online, I was like, yeah, it's bad, but it's not as bad as that. So actually, I'm actually really blessed and not burdened by that experience that I've had, because it's given me the ability to combat by killing these trolls with kindness, these people. Because if I hadn't been through that, if I'm really honest with you, I don't know how people do handle it, because it's incredibly tough. And even a quick insight into football media specifically is, so Talk Norwich City, we're doing our thing, and how it works in media is the bigger your profile gets, the more you get invited on to like bigger corporations, BBC or blah blah blah. Anyway, so I thought the trolling was quite bad, and I've got my first interview on Sky Sports News, and it was when Frank Lampard was rumoured to be the Norwich manager. First time broadcast live in the studio, which is my spare bedroom behind me here. Anyway, so I'm on Sky Sports, and I'm absolutely buzzing, Devon. I'm like, brilliant, life goals. I'm just so grateful for that experience. And I come off it, and Sky Sports have clipped it up, and I've not even said anything controversial. All I said was something like, yeah, well up for Frank Lampard being the next Norwich manager. And the abuse was horrific, because it's just a huge, big account. And I think this is a bit of real talk actually as well. Like, I want people to understand the consequences of getting to an audience size that I've got, because I can't win. If I post anything on social media, anything, I'm always going to get someone that doesn't like it, and that's really tough to handle. Which goes back to your point, sorry to ramble on, Dev, about education. 100%. Everything starts with education. We don't value teachers enough. We don't value schools enough. We don't put enough money into them. And critically, we should be talking to them more about social media. I think let's drip feed it through, but it should be a key component part, because it's not going away. So then go back to your question about what was my first vulnerable post. I think I'm just always unapologetically me. So I put a video on in lockdown of me doing a Norwich City version of the sea shanty, right? Me just singing the sea shanty song with my own Norwich lyrics, right? Yes, it was corny. Yes, it was a bit embarrassing. But ultimately, why did I post it? I posted it to put smiles on people's faces as a bit of fun, because I was just being me. And again, the abuse was horrific, but the upside of that was, profile raising and opportunities left, right, and centre. So I think the upside is there, but people also do need to be aware of the mental health implications. 100%.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what you've been through or what people similarly have been through, something like that. I can only say I have great admiration for people like you who are able to sort of talk about it, one, openly, but also to put a different kind of spin on it, so to almost use it as a deflecting mechanism to excel in what else you do, and then to tell that story in the way that you do. And even when I see things like your little bloopers or the things that you post on LinkedIn, I just love all of that, because I think because that's what life is. And I sometimes get to hearing people's stories about things, and some of them you'll never know that they've gone through something so horrific, and yet because they're always smiling and always posting. And I never really kind of liked that. I always thought like life is a lot more than just smiling for social media, and I don't want that to perpetuate onto the next generation who then think, okay, that's how life is, because it's not. It's you are what you present on social media, and I'm trying now to be a bit more authentic, a bit more personal with my own posts, because as you've probably seen from my LinkedIn, I just end up talking about football and just do that because I like talking about it. And don't worry, there's plenty of time to get into more about football, and I'm interested about the talk Norwich City stuff. But no, to really, hammer home, what you went through and to talk about it, fair play to you, mate. If no one's ever said it, I really mean that. And on the kind of talk Norwich City bit, we got to talk about it. You got 2 brilliant Norwich City shirts behind you and everything. It'd be silly not to. So you talk about I guess the trolling at the beginning, and I'm interested about football media a little bit, because all I know about it is really football Twitter, and the only real times I've ever got involved in it is, let's say I'm a United fan, right, and we had Eric Ten Hag this summer. I remember when Ollie was getting sacked. It was a visceral place when Ollie was about to get sacked at United. I remember saying, I like Ollie. I just said, 3 words, I like Ollie, and that got a horrific backlash from people who didn't like him. And then all of a sudden went to my race, went to my personality, went to all these different things that had nothing to do with me or the tweet. It just didn't make sense. So do you have an understanding or an idea as to why football Twitter in particular, or football media as we've seen it, not comparing it to other industries, I'm not sure, but for why it's as visceral as it is, and if there's a way to try and combat this, if ever there is a way?
Do you know what? If I had the real silver bullet to that question, I would be filthy rich, Dev, because football Twitter is an absolute cesspit of toxic online behaviour.
Yeah.
Right? 100%. And I'm actually almost fascinated by football Twitter, because it's like,
same here.
It's like this collide of what was traditional tribalism, I'll call it, in real life, where you'd be in the stands and you'd be giving it fingers left, right and centre, shouting, swearing, there's abuse backwards and forwards, there might be a scuffle on the way to the ground, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like people know that that's not acceptable, and that there's punishment for that. Oh, but hang on a minute. Over on this thing called social media, there's little to no punishment. Well, actually, there's no punishment, because if you say something bad, you can just create a new account. It's got no matter. Yeah. And so football Twitter is a really, as I say, a really fascinating thing. It's also a thing that's now it's now a thing that's being monetized and commercialized by big corporations, because they realize just how ferociously engaged supporter bases are in their football Twitter world. And actually, I think if it wasn't for football Twitter, I wonder how many people wouldn't be on that platform, right? There is just such strong communities in there. As you say, you highlighted your story there about I Love Ollie, and it's just like, by doing one thing, it's like just everything's black and white. There's no grey space in football Twitter. Like, you've got to be one or the other. I liken it to, for example, the recent Norwich City case study of that is we're not getting results in the Premier League under Daniel Farke, and I posted saying I really, really respect what Daniel Farke has done, but at the same time, I do think it's time for a change. And even that, where I presented that respect, but it's time for a change. So arguably, I've sat on the fence, but even then, I've been battered and bruised by both sides. And so, I don't have the answer to that question. I think generally football is full of testosterone hungry blokes that are bullies, and actually going back to that point about trolling, it's been a really fascinating journey for me, Deb, because what I've done in the last probably 2.5 to 3 years is I've flipped it on its head. if someone just calls me a profanity, I can't do anything with that. But if someone just posts something that's just completely unfair criticism that's personal about me, I respond and I kill them with kindness. And what I mean by that is I address them by the name on their account, which is often not their name, and I ask them how they are, right? Because these people, particularly people within the football Twitter community, they're really struggling. And I know they're struggling because at the end of that tweet, I always say, please drop me a DM.
Yeah.
Your constructive criticism. Yeah. 50% don't reply.
Yep.
50% will. And then when I chat to them backwards and forwards, they'll say to me privately, oh, yeah, do you know what, Chris? I've had a shit day. Oh, yeah. Do you know what, Chris? What did I have? There was one even just literally last week. Oh, yeah, I'm going through a really bad divorce at the moment. Or my business has just gone bust. And it sounds so basic, but I promise you it's the truth. Anyone that's in this football Twitter world that's spouting personal abuse simply over an opinion on a football match, they're really struggling in their life. And so I think, yeah, as I say, the football Twitter question is you could do a whole separate podcast on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we could. And again, do we think it will change, or what if you had sort of like an idea on what we could do, either from our perspective? Is it just a case of our generation needs to teach the next one about how you behave, or do you think there'll be more regulation on Twitter now that Elon's there? Like, do you see much kind of changing in the next generation, shall we say?
Do you know, it's quite heavy to say, so I'm trying to say it in the right way, and I want to be sensitive around this.
Yeah.
I sort of liken it to generations' conversations around homophobia, transphobia, racism. I think as the generations go on, it slowly sort of waters down. And there's so much work to do there, by the way. And I'm not saying that this is by anywhere near a problem, and actually it fuels those problems, so it is linked.
Yeah.
The thing with online abuse and social media hate, you're totally right. I do think we are the first generation to actually just be hit by this, and we will do some learning down to the next generation about how to conduct yourself online. Nothing will change on social media until there's more heavy regulations. Nothing will change.
Yeah.
If you don't put an ID on sign up, nothing will change, and the punishments aren't anywhere near good enough. 100%. No. So that's a fact. But what I always say to people is take accountability and responsibility for your own actions and the actions of those around you. Particularly if you're a bloke in the football Twitter community, to go back to that, actually say to your mate, God, do you know what, Dev? I thought that the way that you replied to that bloke, simply banging an opinion on a player that you thought was rubbish.
Yeah.
That was really poor form, Dev. You really need to actually think about what you're posting, because that could affect their mental health. I think blokes challenging people like that is really important.
Yeah.
But I also say this phrase all the time. Be the change you want to see. And that's why I pump my socials full of positivity.
Yeah.
And there's this whole new argument with people that are uncomfortable with positivity, and they ban the toxic positivity thing. They chuck that at you. Toxic positivity, blah, blah. Do you know what? I'd rather toxic positivity than online abuse and hate and negativity. Yeah. So I think we need to sit on one side of the seesaw, and we need to push over there a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to sit on one of them, I'd rather be on the positive one than the negative one, you'd want to think, wasn't it? Yeah, and like I say, we could probably talk about Twitter forever, and it's like, no doubt, when this goes out on Twitter, someone will have something to say. That's just the nature of the platform, really. But one thing that you've obviously built over such a long time with Jack as well, and what you two have sort of built as a bit of a Norwich empire, from what I've seen in terms of the fan engagement and some of the other podcasts and things I've seen. I've definitely watched you guys, even though I myself am not a Norwich fan. I definitely get engaged by you guys, and I'm just really interested to know how Talk Norwich City sort of came about, and how either who came up with the idea, and where, if there was kind of a pivotal moment for you guys where you thought, okay, here's the time to actually kick on and do this properly, when that was. So to start off with, like, where did Talk Norwich City come about, and when did it come about?
So, more years-wise, blimey, Riley, I need to actually get up to date with how long ago it was. So basically, the Whistle Stop Tour journey of Talk Norwich City is Jack started it in his bedroom when he was a kid, and his voice was still breaking, and it was hilarious, right? And he would say that himself.
Yeah.
Then what happened, Dev, is I actually went on for what's called a fan cam, for those of you who've been Arsenal fan TV, and we'd laughed and joked that we had the same surname, and people to this day still think we're brothers. And anyway, Jack and I sort of just became friends, and then we confided in each other because unfortunately Jack's father passed away suddenly. So we were two friends that had both been hit by grief, both lost a parent, both really love Norwich City Football Club, enjoy the media side of things. And so what happened then is Jack and I almost became co-hosts and co-founders of Talk Norwich City, and we grew it and we developed it and we posted this content over and over again. And like everything in life, Dev, by being consistent and asking questions, it creates opportunities. And after years of standing outside in the rain, the snow, the sleet outside Carrow Road, after we've just lost 1-0 for the 5th time in a row in the Championship, we actually managed to get on Russell Martin, who was the Norwich City captain at the time, who's now the manager at Swansea, and he forced that through. He said he saw the value, he saw what we were doing, he saw that we created a community of engaged supporters and wanted to speak in his language, going back to that point about authenticity, to the supporters. So he pushed it through, he came on, and then from there the TNC podcast was born. And what happened, Dev, is we each time a guest came on, a new guest came up because people would trust us, and it continued to grow. And by the way, the hate got worse because people were more jealous, right? But that is the journey of Talk Norwich City. But it's both our side hustle, like we don't do it full time. We just do it because we love it. And we're very grateful that we're now sponsored by businesses, and it's a whole lot of fun, and we love the community that we've built. We managed to, in lockdown, we did a 24-hour live podcast, and we raised £23,000 for a local cancer charity, which obviously you can imagine was close to my heart and Jack's heart. So that's the story of TNC, really. It's been a crazy whirlwind.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love hearing about any sort of success story that starts in a bedroom or like it continues in a bedroom, wherever it was. Because I guess technically I'm a Gen Zer. I only found this out last week, but I'm a Gen Zer apparently, and I grew up on YouTube and all that kind of media. So I'm almost used to success being from a bedroom, like the KSIs, the Sidemans of the world and things. But I'm just fascinated by fan channels because of the engagement it gets, but also the way it's starting to head. Because you get some, and I won't name names, but you get some who are deliberately, shall we say, incendiary, deliberately controversial about what they want to say for the purpose of clicks. And this isn't new, media's done it for years and years, will continue to do it for years and years. So I don't think it's particularly fair to say that it's a fan channel thing or anything like that. But I've been fascinated personally by competition in fan channels. So, for example, I'm a United fan. We don't just have one fan channel. We've got probably 10 or 15 that I've never heard of, but there's a couple that I really watch, like the Mark Goldbridge, and I'm a Stretford Paddock fan, and weirdly it's almost like you have to align yourself with a certain fan channel because they think how you do, and another channel might think how they do, and they post about the exact same game, the exact same scoreline, but like any two sets of fans have two separate opinions, will have their own people who flock towards that, and you get almost two sub communities in a fan base that end up kind of hating each, or they combat they butt heads a lot. So I will always back Stretford, but I like them. They tend to say some of the stuff that I say, and some guys will like the United stand or like Vibe with Five or whatever's kind of out there at the minute. And have you personally seen that in the Norwich community? And if so, how do you kind of feel about that? Is there a need for competition when it comes to media in that world, or would you prefer that people took a different stance on it, I guess?
Well, on the whole, Norwich City is a nice little
Yeah.
family football club, right? That is the truth. Like every single football club, there are toxic parts of the fan base. There are fans that clash. It's very, very different with one of the, no offense, Dev, with one of the greedy six. Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea. These football clubs, the online fan base that don't go to the games are so bad because they just do not care. There's no consequence. And so yes, I've seen something there. I think as I alluded to already, like naturally we've had certain parts of the Norwich City community jealous of what we've achieved, but as years have gone by, they've gone, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I like what they've done there. Or actually, do you know what? They interview good people. That's quite cool. But what I would say, Dev, is I'd positively challenge you on your point actually about I follow this channel because they align with my views. I think that is where media as a whole and social media and definitely football media is and social media is dangerous because what we need to do is we need to listen to different opinions to form our own opinion. And actually, I personally think the best fan channels out there are the ones that engage with their community, right? They don't we everywhere. We do this, we're the best at that, we're number one, we create all of this content, and if you like it, whatever, if you don't, whatever. The best fan channels are the fan channels that invite their viewers to ask questions, right? Yeah. Because then even if you're not aligned, you can actually see the other side of the fence. And yeah, like me and Jack talk about it all the time, like we're emotional, we get carried away, we're biased. If I get to know one of the players, of course I'm biased towards those. But I think it's really healthy then to have that critical conversation. Richard sent, hi Chris, we've got Richard. Richard sent a message in on Twitter, and he says, you're absolutely deluded about Daniel Farke. He's definitely the man. We should have kept him. Completely disagree with you, right? But then the best fan channels respond to that saying, thanks, Richard, for sharing your opinion. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch our content. Yeah. I can actually see a bit of your argument because, but it's just balance, right? So, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, Devon.
No, it does.
It's really complex. It's really complex. But what I would say is not every fan channel is doing it for clicks and likes. Some people are doing it just because they love their football community, which is the case with Jack and I. And I do think there are people that are in it to make a quick buck. They're cowboys, and that's fine. But they get found out. And the good guys in the fan channel space, you'll know who the good guys are. You can just see through their engagement, and the best ones are the ones that actually have people disagreeing with them. Yeah. Then they'll reply, and that's a healthy thing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's work that needs to be done, obviously, from a social perspective or from a fan channel perspective. But I do think, they wouldn't be, let's face it, they wouldn't really be successful if all of their following were horrible people. It's just not how the world works. Like, there are careful, considerate people who are there and want to tune in for all the right reasons. And this kind of brings me on to something that I don't know if you've ever considered it or if you've thought about it, but I'm just interested to know how people would think about this, because I always think, like, if we were to take like a huge YouTuber, huge personality, and say, start from the beginning in the current climate, what would be different to when you started back then? So obviously you're in social media, and I'm keen to hear what your thoughts would be, either on platforms or on content, or just around a general, I don't know, a general kind of mission statement. But let's take us to a world where Talk Norwich City doesn't exist, or it's got 10 followers on Twitter, you've just started it, you've got a nice username, it's all looking nice, but you haven't really thought of a brand, you haven't really thought of a logo, you've just got a name, just got an idea. What would be your kind of checkpoints to click first, and where would your thinking be in terms of a media plan in order for it to be successful today?
What a question. Well, my first thing is there's a filter before that. You need to zoom out, and you need to look in the mirror, and you need to seriously think about whether you really want to be in the world of fan media. Yeah. Because seriously, Dev, the online abuse. If I had the opportunity to start something now, the truth is I wouldn't do it. It's not worth it. I've had way too many dark nights to having, if I was to start it now, it just wouldn't be worth it. And so I'm so blessed and grateful that I've stuck at it, because now I'm at this point where we can create some cool stuff and I can see the upside. But if I was to start from scratch now, seriously, I'd be thinking I'm going to get tons of abuse for this. Tons of abuse. And I think it's got a lot worse, actually. But anyway, to do the nice side of it, if I was to start from scratch and I'd decided in myself I was able to cope with the mental health impacts of running a fan channel, first of all, I would double down on TikTok. I think it's a platform that has definitely the best organic reach, 100% out of all of the social platforms. I would consider not going on Twitter, genuinely, personally. I think it's a really powerful tool to engage with the football community. But again, that mental health point, seriously think about that. I think it's really, really important to not make it all about you. So what I mean by that is you need to canvass different people's opinions, create different shows where you can unlock networks of people. So for example, why don't you talk to fans of a certain era that saw a certain competition win only about that certain subject, and hear that, and that's that content. Now if you host people and have them on, they're more likely to share. Well, this is what you're doing with me today, Dev, right? It's a pretty common tactic. You're going to share this on social media. I'm then going to, because I've enjoyed this conversation with you and I've enjoyed your company, I'm going to share it to my audience, and then you'll gain from that because you'll get more views, etc. So I think it's really, really important to collaborate. I think that's really, really important. Also, the mindset needs to be perfection over execution. People spend so long looking at other channels, looking at other media, and trying to make it like them. Like, we had an account that was set up recently, and I don't even care saying it because I still think it's ridiculous to this day. They started an account called Norwich Talk, right? And our name's Talk Norwich City. And the reason why their channel won't grow is because it just looks like you're copying, right? So try to be as unique as possible. It's impossible to be completely unique. That's an important point. But to go back 2 steps, execution over perfection. Just post stuff. Don't get obsessed with creating this perfect thing that True Geordie's doing, or AFTV or the United Stand do. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just create the content that you think other people will enjoy, and ask questions. Ask questions of your audience. Get them engaging. Don't just make it about you and your opinion. Ask for their opinion. And I think that's what I do. And I think the most important thing over and above all of that, and actually this isn't just for football media, this is for everything, but seriously, patience. Because the truth is, it's so unlikely that you're going to post something that goes viral. Like, the chances of going viral are pretty minimal unless you do something absolutely ridiculous, which means you get cancelled, and therefore your channel will never take off if you get cancelled within the first year, right? So I think those are the things that I would say. That sounds quite negative. It's really fun. You can be really creative. But yeah, just be aware of the impact.
No, I think it's good for people to hear that side, to be honest, because I don't think, especially with someone like me who's tried, I tried a fan channel before, I'll be honest, it didn't kick off, it didn't do that well, and mainly because I got so bogged down into the detail of it that I just stopped enjoying it. I stopped liking watching a football match because I started writing things down of what to talk about and then editing it all properly, not having any real enjoyment for watching the football game. And then I thought, if I don't like watching football, why the hell am I doing a fan chat? And then it just turned into a thing.
100%. You vitally have to love documenting your process of running a channel. You have to love the journey of starting from scratch. And you have to eat shit for 2 years before you can eat caviar. That is the truth. And that's stolen from Gary Vaynerchuk, by the way. I love that. But it's the total truth. It's so important. And I think people think that you can just start a football fan channel, get a designer to do a nice little brand for you. Like, I get people saying to me, like, oh, how have you got sponsors? And I'm like, because we posted content for 5 years before we pitched to anyone. That's what people expect, to start a fan channel and then demand that business sponsors them within a week.
Yeah.
And there's no value exchange.
Yeah.
That's actually, let me go back to your question, Dev, as well, if you don't mind. That's another really important thing. Again, not just in football media or fan channels, but in life and marketing and everything. When you're asking someone of something of someone, please think about how you can give them value, even in your position. Is it a free something? Is it a ticket to that? Is it a coffee on you? Is it a bit of cake with a meeting? Is it a cinema ticket? Is it you introducing them to someone that could help them with their business? But always think about the value exchange, because the people that message me, I always respond to the people where they've taken the time to be super polite, but they've also thought, I actually want to help you, Chris, because I really value what you're about. And I think that's really important. And that's one of the reasons why I've been able to get guests on, is because I make them comfortable, but I also make it about them. Like, what story do you want to tell and why? I don't want to create my script, my show notes, without knowing what you want to achieve. Ben Gibson, Angus Gunn, El Hernandez, Stuart Webber, Todd Cantwell. What do you want to say to the fans?
Yeah.
And that's that thing is that value exchange is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough to get right in this era of instant gratification, isn't it? But you just got to keep the patience, like you said. And just, I know we're pressed for time, but I've got 2 more things I want to ask. We've got some quick fires coming at the end, and then this one. I just love hearing about how people get into football and what their kind of ideas are behind it. And I don't know if this is a thing. I feel like it is, but I feel like you could tell quite a lot about a person from a football's perspective on who their favourite players are. So I've kind of taken a different standpoint on this. A lot of people ask for, your all-time 11, your all-time 5-a-side. And I've asked you kind of really briefly, you didn't have to prepare anything obviously, but in terms of just kind of your favourite 6-a-side football team. And it doesn't have to be you have prepared. That is world class. I love that. That's going on TikTok. So I asked you beforehand, just if you'd come up with your favourite 6-a-side team, 1 goalkeeper, 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, a striker. Take it away, mate. Who's in goal for your favourite 6-a-side team?
Can I just say seriously, no, like this team, right? Okay, in goal, you need. I'm thinking, right. You need a World Cup winner, right? Maybe you need 2 World Cup winners, right? So in goal, I've gone for a classic English legend, Gordon Banks.
Fair enough.
Big wingspan, get him in between the sticks. Gordon Banks, World Cup winner. Now, everyone that played FIFA Street as a kid will Roberto Carlos in there.
Yeah.
Roberto Carlos, those free kicks, the power, the agility, a bit of Brazilian flair, he's in there. I must admit, Dev, I love a bit of shithouse football every day. I love shithouse football, right? So I've gone for Puyol, a real lion at the heart of the defence. Someone that is just, quite frankly, just going to barge someone off the ball. If we're losing, I just want aggression. I want to win. I just want to win in any way, shape or form. So Puyol's in there. Here are the midfield 2. Now, they go by the name of Messi on one side, but a player that is by far better than Messi is, of course, Wes Hoolahan. So I've got Messi and Wesy in midfield, and then up top I've got you might be thinking I'm going to pick Ronaldo, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the original Ronaldo. That's boring. Yeah, I kind of want a player, a bit of grit, someone that is going to, again, shithouse. Someone that's going to take their top off and reveal their unathletic physique, and that's Grant Holt, Norwich City legend up top, and of course managed by a manager who I think we need more of in the game, and that's Jose Mourinho. Gets a bad rap, people think he's finished, but I think football lacks character. I think character and the soul of football is being sapped out of it. And I think Jose Mourinho is one of those characters that just makes me engaged in the sport.
Yeah.
So basically my team is full of characters and players that are going to rough people up. But there you go.
That's a fascinating six-a-side team. I can't, like, if there's a world where Messi and Wezzy is a thing, I want to live in that world. That is a pretty mental one. And to be fair, I was gonna do like before we spoke, I was gonna do one on like all of the guests you've spoken on. Who would you pick in your favourite? But I thought you might want to get more guests on, and that's a bit rude to do favourites. So I quite like that team. Puyol and Roberto Carlos. Don't know how that'll work, but probably a load of red cards. But that'd be a decent one, to be fair. So no, I love that. I definitely think it's good. My favourite six-a-side team is always different to the old time, and it's always different to everyone else's. But it's the ones you grow up with that have a bit of a place in there that would make it in that team. So I completely get that. So nah, love that, mate. Thanks for the prep as well. That's brilliant. And finally, onto some quick fire ones. So deliberately, I'm gonna leave out a bit of context on these, and you can just go with them as much as you like. Feel free to not answer them. Feel free to answer them. None of them are too bad. Don't worry. But quick fire, just the first thing that comes to mind, and we can go through it like that. But very first one. Obviously, you're a Norwich City fan, and we use the term yo-yo club a lot with Norwich City or Fulham or similar clubs of that ilk. Is the term yo-yo club offensive?
No, it's not. And only people that support the Greedy Six think that that's an offensive term. I would rather be a yo-yo club than a club that's just literally rotting mid-table, or even worse, dare I say, in League One, Ipswich. I'd much rather be a yo-yo club. And you know what? It's so entertaining. And let's zoom out here, Dev. Why do we watch football? Why do we follow football? Why do we talk about football? It's entertainment. It's escapism from everyday life. And therefore, no one wants to watch their team just scrape draws and stay mid-table. Yes, Norwich City have sucked in the Premier League in the last few campaigns, but the other two campaigns, we've won more silverware than some of the biggest clubs in England. So, look, I think if you really look within yourself and you understand why you watch football, it's to be entertained, and Norwich City provide entertainment on a bi-seasonally.
That's very fair, very fair. I just see it on Twitter a lot. I just don't know if it's people tend to use it like it's an offensive thing, but
yeah, don't get me wrong, it frustrates me that we're a young club, but actually I then think, hang on, Chris, wake up. Realistically, Norwich can't even, like, literally, I think we're one of the poorest clubs in the Championship. Like Delia is down to her last peanuts. We can't afford to even break into mid-table. So it's one of those things where I think fans of bigger clubs are quite disrespectful with it, but actually they would have a much better time supporting Norwich than they would supporting a big club. 100%.
You're better than supporting Man United right now.
You know what, Dev? I'll get a free ticket for Norwich. You come down and watch a game.
Got it. That was the whole point of this. Got my free ticket to Carrow Road. Love that. And you mentioned, it's funny how you mentioned the term Greedy Six quite a lot. So I'm going to mention them a little bit now. There was a big thing that kind of fell into that greediness, which was the European Super League, World Super League, whatever the hell they wanted to call it. I had my views on it, and I'm sure you have your views on it. My question is, do you think that it's going to come back?
Not as it was, but it will, and that's why I keep talking about it, because people have already forgot, because people have got a recency bias, and people forget. People think that this battle is over, and it's not. It's really not. The real football fans that care about this game should be lamenting, criticising, scrutinising these football clubs that chose greed over their fans. Their fans became numbers on a spreadsheet, not fans, right? And look, don't get me wrong, I think because I'm a Norwich fan, it's easier for me to see what football should be, genuinely. And even take off my Norwich City biased glasses. Honestly, no one wants to see a competition where you can't get relegated. That's rubbish. And that goes back to that point of, just being relegated and stuff. And actually, dare I say it, Dev, let's have a bit of fun here. When Manchester United come up against Norwich City, you get excited. Why do you get excited? Because you're probably going to beat us 5 or 6-0, okay? Why do I get excited? I get excited because I think we might pull off a miracle win against Manchester United. And that toing and throwing is what the game is all about.
Yeah.
As soon as you lose that, it sucks. So that's the reason why I still refer to clubs as the Greedy Six. And I think that as we know, the fans have got a lot of power because of the fan movements that didn't happen. but it was so close to happening. And so I think it's very sad that football will go that way, because there is just too much money in the game now for it to not happen. And I feel very sorry, and I empathise with the supporters of those clubs that won't see those big victories ever again. They won't see, you won't be able to attract certain players, and I think, but it's happening, and it's actually scary for sport, because of course we've seen it happen to golf, and the problem with golf is that on the whole, let's be real, it is a bit of a snobby sport. It's not really a working class sport, and live golf is now a thing, and I do think it will happen to football, and I think it's a crying shame.
Yeah, I agree. I can't think of a single fan of the Greedy Six who wanted it to happen. And I tried to look at it from an objective point of view and think, actually, the product that they're pitching, was it a good product? No. Because you can't get relegated, you can't have those miracle days. And the whole point of, like, Man United, Real Madrid, for example, probably one of the biggest games ever, probably will always be one of the biggest games ever. And yet, it would happen every week. The whole point of why it's so important is because you have that scarcity value, and without it, it just gets diluted. So I completely get it as well. And final question, realise we're stretched for time, but thanks so much again for coming on. This has been a really great chat. But final question, in your career so far, this could be personal, it could be as personal or professional as you want this to go, but what are you most proud of in your career so far, and what are you most looking forward to moving forward?
That is really hard. What am I most proud of? Oh God. Well, I've said one thing. The raising that amount of money, doing the 24 watch along was phenomenal. That's probably the thing in Talk Norwich City I'm most proud of. In my personal life, I went to Zambia and I volunteered at an orphanage and a school and bought Norwich shirts over there and just learned so much about life and perspective and what happiness really is. So I think I'm really proud that I went there and privileged and blessed that I had that experience. In my career, I think just starting a business is an achievement, 100%. I think people don't realise when you start a business, and particularly when you've got a limited company, the stresses and strains and pressures of it. But I'm just really proud that I finally got the balls to do it, because once it was just a pipe dream that everyone kept saying to me, they were scaring me, like, you can't do this, you're not going to be able to do that. This is all of this. But actually, no one ever looks at the upside as much as our brains are wired to focus on the negative and not on the positive. And so I actually just think, me sitting here now looking at my limited company certificate is something I'm really proud of. And going forwards, what I'm looking forward to the most, I think I'm really looking forward to actually just experiencing life over the next few years and by way of travel, because as I've used that phrase before, that Gary Vaynerchuk, I've eaten shit for many years. I've really struggled, over the last decade with the passing of my late mother, and I think that now I've completed in my head what I wanted to complete with my grief process. Now I'm going to travel and I'm going to enjoy life, and I'm going to help people. I'm looking forward to helping people, Dev. That's what I'm here to say. It's good.
No, brilliant, mate, and more power to you, can I say. And if you need any thoughts about football stadiums to go to, I'm your man, because I've got a bucket list of my own, so I'll be sure to give you as many as you need. But listen, you've been an absolute pleasure, Chris. So guys, obviously, if you haven't already, go follow him. He's got brilliant stuff on LinkedIn. I'll tag like kind of his website and everything in the descriptions, either on LinkedIn or on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching to this. But I'm hoping you guys enjoyed it kind of as much as I've enjoyed it. And you know what? We don't know who the next guest is going to be. I'm not even sure what we're going to talk about yet, but I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it. So stick around for that, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.